Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about stress versus burnout. There's a moment a lot of entrepreneurs describe that sounds something like this. I used to love this. Now I dread opening my laptop. I don't know when that happened. When you're thinking that way, that's not having a rough week or a bad launch, not even a slow season. That's what burnout is. And most people don't see it coming because being stressed and being burned out can look almost identical from the inside until they don't. Hi, if you don't know me, my name is Shannon Schroeder. I am the F-Bomb coach. I help ADHD women build sustainable systems for their businesses and their lives. So let's get into this. Stress and burnout aren't the same thing. Stress says, I have too much to do and not enough time. Burnout says, I have things to do and I can't make myself care. Stress says, I'm overwhelmed, but I can see the finish line. Burnout says, there is no finish line. It's never ending. Or I don't believe in it anymore. Stress says I need a break. Burnout says a break doesn't actually help. That last one right there is the clearest signal. With stress, rest restores you. A good weekend, a vacation, even taking a slow day. You come back feeling more like yourself. With burnout, the rest doesn't land, it doesn't fix things. You sleep, but you're still exhausted. You take a day off and you feel guilty and behind instead of being refreshed. The recovery tank has a hole in it. That distinction matters because if you're treating burnout like stress, trying to push through, trying to optimize things, trying to get more done and be more efficient, you're not fixing the problem, you're actually deepening it. So why do neurodivergent people hit burnout faster? Because you're already doing things more. You're already working harder than a neurotypical person. There's hyperfocus, where you just fall down a rabbit hole of doing something and you don't pay attention to how much time has passed until you've gone too far, and then your body and your brain are both done. Masking, covering some of your own personal quirks, for lack of a better way, so that you fit in more, so that you can be more professional, so that you look neurotypical. All or nothing thinking. You're all in or you're done. There's no middle ground. And poor interoception. Now this one might be new to you, but interoception is your ability to read your body's cues, to know what's happening in your body. Your hunger, your thirst, your fatigue, tension, needing to go to the bathroom. For a lot of ADHDers, they have reduced interoceptive awareness, which means that you don't notice when you're exhausted until you're absolutely running on empty. You don't notice that you're really stressed until you're snapping at people. And you don't notice that you're in hyperfocus until you go to stand up and your legs aren't working right, or you've waited too long to go to the bathroom. This is the way your neurology is working. So let's talk about some warning signs. This list matters because not one of these things looks like burnout on the surface. Losing interest in your work can look like boredom or distraction. Increased avoidance can look like procrastination. Physical symptoms get dismissed as being unrelated to your work. And pulling back from community, which is actually your body trying to conserve energy, can look like introversion or being busy. The pattern is what signals burnout. Not one single item on here alone, but several of them showing up at once over an extended period of time. So if you're reading this list and you're recognizing yourself in more than 3 of them, it's worth slowing down and taking it seriously, because burnout can take you out of the game for much longer than just having a stressed week. So let's talk about burnout versus ADHD. This is important because the intervention is different. If it's ADHD doing its thing, the answer might be adjusting your systems or your environment or your support structure. If it's burnout layered on top of your ADHD, adding more systems isn't going to be the answer. More structure on top of a burned out brain is just making more to manage. The question isn't, do I have ADHD or burnout? Because it can absolutely be both. The question is whether your current experience is a shift from your normal ADHD life, because that shift is the signal. And for neurodivergent people who have spent years normalizing that struggle, Noticing that shift requires a lot of self-honesty. So there are 3 stages of burnout. Most people don't ask for help until stage 3, and by then recovery takes months instead of days. So stage 1 is the grind. You have high output, high drive, you ignore the warning signals, and you just say, well, I'll rest after this launch. Stage 2 is the slow drain. Your effort is increasing, but the results that you're getting from it are decreasing. Your enjoyment in doing the thing is fading. You're functioning, but you're not really thriving. And stage 3 is when you hit the wall. Functioning is genuinely impaired. You're emotionally flat, or you're extremely reactive. Basic tasks feel insurmountable. The goal of this video is to help you catch yourself when you're in stage 1 or early stage 2, where intervention can be faster, lighter, and doesn't require you to dismantle your whole business in order to recover. If you're already at stage 3, it's okay, it happens. But the recovery path looks different, and it needs to be taken seriously. Because it seems like it snuck up on you, but it was building and building and building, and so there is no overnight fix. You're going to have to build and build and build to get to that recovery. So what keeps neurodivergent people stuck? In general, we normalize high stress because we've had to work harder just to keep up. We tie our worth to our output. If we're not producing, then who are we? We're losers, right? We're afraid of being seen as lazy because the message for so long, for so many years of your life, is that you are lazy because the way you do things is not the way other people do them. And in general, we don't have good models for what sustainable work looks like. And rest feels dangerous because if you're resting, again, we go back to that I'm lazy, but then you also feel like you're falling behind and losing momentum and letting people down. And when we look at that, the permission to rest has never felt safe. Rest wasn't rewarded while you're growing up, right? Effort was. The more you do, the more you are. Stopping isn't celebrated. Pushing through was, oh, come on, just buck up and do it. And now we're running businesses where no one's giving us permission to slow down, and we've internalized the idea that the slower we go, the more we're failing. And this is a belief that you really need to look at and question because it's one of the fastest paths to stage 3 burnout. Sustainable output requires sustainable input. That's your business model. So what does recovery look like? Recovery from stress. You can have a good break, a weekend off, a slower week, and then you can bounce back. Recovery from early stage burnout, you need to reduce the load meaningfully for weeks, not just days. You need to address the source of the drain, not just the symptoms. Recovery from full burnout, you need real significant rest. Maybe you need to restructure your business. Maybe you need to get outside help. And this could last months because it took months to get there. It may not feel like it right now if you're in stage 3 burnout, but it really did take months to get there and you just ignored all of the warning signs. For ADHD brains, recovery has to be active, not just passive. And so when we look at this, if you're burned out and you take a week off and you feel worse, again, that's your nervous system struggling with the unstructured time, which happens a lot with an ADHD brain. Recovery isn't necessarily lying on the couch doing nothing, because then you can spiral into guilt and shame and scrolling, which is not restorative either. Recovery might look like doing different things that feel good, that have low stakes, a creative project with no deadline, movement that's fun rather than productive, a connection with other people without an agenda of how is this going to grow my business. The goal is to refill the tank without adding more pressure to the system. And we need to talk about having a minimum viable day, especially when you're in burnout mode. A minimum viable day concept is one of the most important frameworks for ADHD business owners in any season, but definitely in burnout recovery. Your brain wants to earn its rest. It wants to justify slowing down by showing you could do more, but you need to resist that. A minimum viable day isn't giving up. It's a strategic way to preserve what you have. You're keeping the business alive while you restore the person running it. And those aren't in conflict. Again, you've heard the phrase, you can't pour from an empty cup. And you definitely can't run a business with an empty cup. So think about what a minimum viable day would look like for you, and then guard that and produce that. So here's your one thing for this week. Honestly answer the question, am I stressed or am I burned out? Not the answer that sounds toughest, not the one that keeps you moving fast, but the real answer. If you're stressed, name what's driving it and build in one real recovery practice. If you're burned out or getting close to being burned out, give yourself permission to say so. That's going to be the first step to actually getting better. Some people watching this are going to recognize that they've been in stage 2 for way longer than they realized, and they need someone to point that out to them. Honor that. The fact that you're here learning about this and paying attention to yourself, that counts for a lot, and that's going to be the beginning of making changes. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope you've learned what you need to do, the differences between stress and burnout. If this helped you, please hit like, subscribe, share with someone else, and I will see you in the next video.